There was a moment she sat in a plastic chair outside a classroom and heard her own name used as an example of what not to become. Not a warning, an example. The teacher didn't even lower her voice. And you know what she did? She sat there. She absorbed it. She let it crawl into the soft places inside her chest and build a home. Because when someone in authority tells you something about yourself early enough, you don't question it. You archive it. You treat it like fact. You carry it forward the way you carry your own reflection, without ever choosing to. That moment was a seed, not the kind that grows into something beautiful, the destructive kind, the kind that waits. And it waited in her for years. Through every application she didn't submit, every sentence she didn't finish, every room she entered already apologizing for taking up space. That one comment from one small person in one forgettable hallway became the operating system she ran her entire life on. You've had moments like that. Maybe you still live in them. Stay with me. Here is what overcoming doubt and failure actually looks like before the overcoming part. It looks like showing up and already knowing you'll fail. It looks like being right. She tried. And that's the part nobody tells you about people who were told they'd never amount to anything. Most of them still try, quietly, privately, with the kind of hope that's too fragile to show anyone. She applied for the position. She wrote the application 3 times. She read it back and heard the teacher's voice instead of her own. She submitted it anyway. They didn't call her back. Of course they didn't. That's what she told herself. Of course. So she filed it away as proof. That's what doubt does when it's been living inside you long enough. It doesn't just predict failure. It collects it, catalogues it, builds a case. Every rejection becomes Exhibit A. Every stumble becomes a footnote in the argument against your own existence. And the insidious part, the part that should terrify you, is that the argument starts to sound reasonable. She got a job that was smaller than her. She knew it. She stayed anyway because small felt survivable. She dated someone who confirmed what she already believed about herself. Not because she was weak, because familiarity is its own kind of gravity. She stopped talking about what she wanted, not because she stopped wanting it. Because wanting something out loud when you've been told you're nothing is an act of violence against your own armor. It lets light in. And light hurts when you've been living in the dark long enough. Years passed, not the dramatic kind of years, not the kind that look like tragedy from the outside. The quiet kind. The kind where nothing catastrophic happens and nothing magnificent happens either. Just Tuesday, then Wednesday, then a whole decade of the same Tuesday and Wednesday. And beneath all of it, that voice. That single comment from a single person who probably forgot she existed before she even left the building. She carried it. She fed it her energy, every day without realizing it. She let someone else's throwaway cruelty author her entire story. That's not weakness. Understand that clearly. That is what happens when overcoming doubt and failure hasn't started yet. And then it broke. Not dramatically, not in one clean moment. It broke the way old infrastructure breaks, from the inside, slowly, then suddenly, in a way that looked inevitable afterward. She was sitting at a desk doing work that didn't require her, not her specifically. Anyone could have done it. Anyone would have done it better, faster, with less existential weight behind every keystroke, and she knew that. She sat with that knowledge the way you sit with a low-grade fever, ignoring it until you can't. And something in her just stopped, not broke down, not fell apart, stopped. Like a machine that finally runs out of fuel it was never supposed to be running on in the first place. She looked at the screen, she looked at her hands, she thought about the teacher, she thought about the chair, she thought about how many years she had now been living inside someone else's sentence about her. And for the first time, she didn't feel afraid of the thought. She felt furious. That fury matters. Don't skip past it. The fury is not the problem. It is the first honest thing she had felt in years. It wasn't rage at the world. It wasn't self-pity dressed up as anger. It was clean. It was specific. It was directed at a lie she had been treating as law. The collapse was not the end. The collapse was the first true beginning. Because you cannot build anything real on a foundation that was laid by someone who didn't believe in you. It has to come down. All of it. Every story, every archive, every carefully collected exhibit of your supposed insufficiency. It has to come down before anything true can stand. Now here is what you need to understand about overcoming doubt and failure at the root level. The doubt was never yours. It was handed to you, assigned. pressed into you at a moment when you were too open to refuse it. You received it the way a child receives a language, not by choosing it, but by being immersed in it before you had the tools to question it. That means something profound. It means the story isn't true. It was never true. It was one person's projection spoken into a corridor, absorbed by someone too young and too trusting to interrogate it. The evidence you've been collecting ever since? You collected it because you were looking for it. The brain confirms what it already believes. That's not pessimism, or that's neuroscience. You find what you go looking for. She had been going looking for proof she was nothing, and a world full of random events had been happy to oblige. The reframe is not positive thinking. Don't insult this moment by reducing it to that. The reframe is a forensic examination. It is going back through the evidence and asking, who gave me this premise? What authority did they actually have? What did they actually know? The answer, always, is this: they knew nothing. They were operating from their own damage, their own limitations, their own narrow field of vision. Their words about you were never about you. They were self-expression. They were projection. They were noise. You built a life around noise. That ends here. Not because of a revelation, not because of a speech, because you are old enough now to pick up that archived belief, look at it in proper light, see it for the fraud it always was, and set it on fire. This is where it gets specific. You do not get to read this and nod and feel moved and go back to your Tuesday. Here is what she actually did. Here is what overcoming doubt and failure demands in practice. First, she wrote down every belief she held about her own limitations, not her fears, her beliefs. The things she treated as settled fact. She didn't stop at 5, she didn't stop at 10. She wrote until the page was full and she was uncomfortable and the inner critic was screaming that she was being dramatic. That screaming is the signal to keep writing. Second, she traced each belief back to its origin, not to wallow, to prosecute. She asked, where did this come from? Who said it? What were the exact circumstances? And then she asked the harder question, what did that person actually know about my future? The answer in every case was a variation of nothing. Prosecute every belief with that same question and do not let yourself off the hook until you can name the source. Third, she replaced passive waiting with active production, not positive affirmation, production. She chose one specific skill she had been avoiding because she feared exposure. 1. She worked on it for 45 minutes every single day, not when inspired, every day. The absence of inspiration is not an excuse. It is the exact condition under which discipline is built. 4th, she stopped explaining herself to people who had already decided who she was. This is not cruelty. This is oxygen management. You cannot grow in an environment that is actively poisoning the air. You identify the environments, conversations, relationships, internal habits that feed the old story, and you reduce your exposure to them the way you'd reduce exposure to anything toxic, deliberately, systematically. 5th, she made one visible move every week that contradicted the old identity, not monumental, visible, submitted something, spoke in the meeting, applied for the thing. The visibility matters because the brain needs new evidence to build a new case. You are rebuilding the archive. Give it something to work with. This is not a process you complete. You do not arrive at a place called healed and plant a flag. You practice. You demand more from yourself than the original voice demanded. You do this not once but indefinitely. That is what it costs. Pay it. She is somewhere right now doing work that the teacher's voice said was impossible for her, not in spite of that voice, because of what dismantling it required her to become. That is the part the story never tells you up front. Overcoming doubt and failure is not a subtraction. It is not simply removing the weight and discovering you could always run. It is a construction project. It is building in the dark with tools you had to make yourself. It is choosing, repeatedly and without applause, to operate from a story that has not yet been confirmed by evidence. That is the act of faith that has nothing to do with religion and everything to do with nerve. You have nerve. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. Something in you already knows that the verdict isn't in. Something in you refused to fully accept the sentence. That refusal, that small, stubborn, quiet refusal, is the only thing that has ever mattered. Honor it, feed it, build something with it that forces the world to pay attention. She sat in that plastic chair and heard her name. Now the room has to learn hers.